Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Healing Doesn't Have to Be Heavy podcast. I'm Angie Berrett. I am a trauma informed coach. I'm a play expert. I'm a registered nurse, and I'm also a child abuse survivor. As I was on my healing journey, healing from child abuse, I felt like things were so heavy. I felt hopeless, and I felt like I was in this pit of despair, and I didn't see much light and joy along the way. And now that I'm where I am, I've discovered the power of play and movement in helping me connect to my body, releasing limiting self beliefs, stress, anxiety, tension, depression, and trauma, bringing more joy and fun into my lives. And I now get to coach women how to use play and movement to change their entire lives. And so this podcast is a part of that to bring together survivors to share their stories, their sparks of hope, their little nuggets of joy and light that they found along the way on their journey and what they do. And I'm so excited to share today's guest with you today. So, before I do that, let me just give you a little disclaimer. We are going to be talking about narcissistic abuse, toxic relationships, and even thoughts of self harm. So, if you start to feel triggered, start to feel uneasy, definitely step away, do something to come back to yourself, ground down, do some sort of calming exercises. And then I really invite you to come back because our guest today has some incredible insights. She is so fun. She's so amazing and such a light and a spark. And I cannot wait to introduce you to you all and for you to hear her story because she is so fun. So, Laura Richards, thanks so much for being on the show with us today. Laura, how are you?
Yay. I'm so good. I'm so happy to be here and I'm so proud of you for starting this podcast and just talking about all these things. I'm just so excited about it. I'm so thankful that you have me on the show.
Well, thank you for coming. So, tell us about you and who you are and all the goodness about you.
Sure. I mean, it's a long story,
And
but
all the not so good parts of it
yeah,
too,
we'll get
by the
into
way.
that part too. But oh my gosh, who I am now because of that is what we're going to talk about because
Yeah.
it's just been an amazing journey. So I'm Laura Richardson. I am a narcissistic abuse survivor and now expert.
Mhm.
And I'm a speaker and an author and a coach, and I help women in midlife really heal after any kind of abuse, but we focus on narcissistic abuse and toxic relationships, things like that, and learning how to dream again. And so I spent 33 years with my ex-husband and didn't know that he was a narcissist and that anything was wrong in my life until literally after I got divorced and went through healing. And as I was healing, my brain was like calming down and my nervous system was regulating and all these things. And I got clarity and I started to see the patterns I had been through with him for that time. And I just found I was like, wait a second, this has been narcissistic abuse. And as I was like, like when you just go follow the breadcrumbs to like, wait, what about this? Is this something? And I followed the breadcrumbs during my healing and figured out it was narcissistic abuse and started unraveling the last 33 years. But actually, I started unraveling the last 55 years of my life and unraveled it all. And so who I am now is not who I've ever been. I have to tell you, like, there's still parts of me, but Laura at 55 is not Laura at 58. I am a completely different person. The joy I have is amazing. And it's all because I decided to dig in as far as I could and do the healing work so that what happened to me didn't define me for the rest of my life. So that's the Cliff Notes version.
Amazing. So powerful. So, for people who may not be familiar with it, what is
Yeah.
narcissistic abuse? Because we hear that
Yeah.
word a lot. That's really common,
Yeah.
thrown around. But what
Yeah.
really is narcissistic abuse?
Yeah, I mean, narcissism is actually a disorder. It's a personality disorder, but okay, so a diagnosed narcissist is very rare
Yeah.
because a narcissist isn't going anywhere near anything to get diagnosed with anything. So the numbers are very low for actual diagnosed, but this is what it is. It's someone who has a lack of empathy, who has a high need for control, who is only thinking about themselves, will manipulate others to get what they want, And so while we use the word, I know the word narcissist is thrown around, but I want us to remember a couple of things is that we don't have to have a label on our partner to make a decision about what we're going to do with our life with them. Okay. And, but
Mhm.
what it helps us do is when we have a name for our pain, we can actually heal from it. And then we can actually know how to deal with other toxic people or narcissists in the future. But their cornerstone is a lack of empathy. So that lack of empathy and thinking about themselves really goes hand in hand. They don't care about you and your issues because you're really bothering them if you have issues or if you have needs and wants,
Yeah,
basic wants and
yeah.
needs. Seriously. And and so then a covert narcissist that I was married to is someone who's different behind the scenes. So at home, he was abusive. And then out in public, he was serving the homeless and going to church and things like that. And so it's such I don't know if I can cuss or not on this show, but
Absolutely. Have at it.
absolutely, because the F word is the only word I like to use for
Yes.
these fuckers. Anyway, no,
Sometimes that's the
seriously,
only word that can describe the
it's the only
actions of
thing.
people like that.
Let
Yes.
me tell you, it's such a mind fuck because of the you have two opposing thoughts going, like they're serving the community and then they come home and abuse you. And it doesn't have to be physical. It just is so they're just ruining your mental health. I didn't say 33 years just for fun. I stayed 33 years because I didn't know what was happening to me because it was so incremental. And he never hit me. He didn't have to hit me. You know what I mean? And so anyway, so that's the basic the lack of empathy is what actually woke me up um in 2020 to go he is so apathetic, like so much lack of empathy that to the point where he's apathetic. He didn't care about if I lived or died, like literally.
So, how did you? What was kind of your breaking point? What
Yeah.
really gave you that courage or
Yeah.
decision spark to leave? Because when you're in a relationship like that, that's so miserable. You've been there for so long, you don't know
Yeah.
anything different.
No, you don't for sure. And then I think I have some patterns from my childhood as well. So
Mm.
look, this is, and then I was sitting in a toxic church as well. I did a whole series on spiritual abuse because there's lots of narcissists in churches as well, and they use the same patterns. And
Mhm.
so it was really hard. I had it all over in my life, and so it all looked the same to me. But what I was finding was the last couple of years. So my mom passed away in 2020, and then my sister-in-law passed away in 2021. Unfortunately, both from COVID. And because of that, I was so devastated, as you can
Mhm.
imagine.
Yeah,
Two
yeah.
people in our family have to, and then plus we're in the pandemic, all these things, right? So, with lack of empathy as the cornerstone, he was like, I don't understand why you're so sad. Like, I don't get it. And it bothers them that you're still sad because can't you just be happy? And all the things, right? Can't you just be happy? And, I just don't think they would want you to be sad. Okay, well, I'm gonna be sad. Like I'm still sad about my mom.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
shut up about it. And so I look, I was even surprised when I said I would want it out. Because I had to say to myself, if I wasn't going to be able to continue because I really was thinking I needed to harm myself to get out. But when I was off of that and starting to think clearly because I was in therapy, my therapist kept saying, he's either unwilling or unable. So you have to decide what you're going to do. She never told me you should leave. I would say, like, I want to leave. And she'd be like, okay, so what do you want to do? Sort of thing. And I had to decide, am I going to live like this for the rest of my life? Like, his parents are still alive. My parents were married, we're together 60 years. Am I going to stay with this man for another 40 years? Am I going to live this life for another 40 years? Because I just picked like think about it. What if we're living till 90 or something, right?
Yeah.
And I said, I can't. I won't live. I can't live one more day like that. And that was the impetus to make me like be brave enough to say it. But I surprised myself. I'll tell you right now. I surprised myself. And then once I had decided, that was it. And so I don't know how you are, but the person I am now, I'm like, if I decide, well, you're not going to
Yeah.
change my mind. So, I dug my heels in, but I had to be really brave because the first thing out of my mouth was, well, I wonder if we could make it work if he did. And that I couldn't even waste one more breath on him. I stopped mid-sentence and I looked at him and I said, "No, I'm done." And I got up and left the room and I didn't talk to him for a couple of days. And then he was like, "Were you serious about the divorce?" I was like, "Yeah."
Yeah. Oh,
And
it's happening. Yep.
it's yeah, be ready. And there's just so much to it. We can get into it, but there's so much to it. But that was a surprise. And then we told the kids, we have grown kids. And let me tell you that two of my kids texted me separately and said they were proud of me because they knew how miserable I was.
Wow.
I may not have even known how miserable I was. You know what I mean? I can laugh about it now and I can look back, but yeah, I really thought one option is somehow to get out of this was to harm myself.
Hmm.
I didn't have a plan. I didn't even know what that meant. You know how you have that feeling you just want to run away. You just want to somehow escape. And I didn't know what it meant. I just knew I didn't want to be there anymore. I didn't want to be alive anymore. And if you're feeling like that, the situation you're in is not healthy because the love of your life will never make you feel like that.
So I went through an abusive marriage. And same thing, he never hit me, but was this great person, volunteered for the homeless, very
Yeah.
similar. And then behind closed doors was telling me that I was this terrible person, everything was all my fault. So very similar, it sounds like stories.
Yes.
And I didn't want to exist anymore. I couldn't
That's
think of
how it,
suicide because same thing for me. I grew up
that's it.
religious. It's I didn't
Yeah.
want to exist anymore.
That's it, right?
Mhm,
That's the wording is that I
mhm.
didn't want to be there or exist anymore. What did that look like? Because I think, don't you feel like that's a survival mode kind of
Absolutely.
feeling? And our brain is like it wants to take us away.
Hmm.
And so that's how I really felt. And so because I never had a plan, I never felt like I wanted to do that, but that's what it was. I didn't want to exist anymore because I didn't want to exist in that situation.
Yes.
Because how, if you're, because this is the hard part when they're telling you they love you,
Hmm.
right? Out of one side of their mouth, and then they're belittling you. They're doing all the things to treat you so poorly. And I'm like, it's so confusing, but that's all part of it. That's all part of the manipulation to confuse you to death.
And
So,
especially when you're hearing from other people, oh my gosh, they're such amazing people. Oh my God, they just do all these wonderful things. And you think, what is
yes,
wrong with me? Because I don't like them. So it's gotta be something wrong
it's,
with me.
yes. And plus, we've been trained that way,
Yes.
right? To be like, everybody likes me. I heard that so many times. Everybody thinks I'm so great, and you're the
Yes.
only one who doesn't. And I'm thinking, but do you treat them like crap?
Right.
I mean, I don't think you're treating them like crap because if you were, then they wouldn't like you either. And that's the hard part is that we don't, it's so hard because we've been societalized and taught wrong, for the fairy tale and all that. And I had that at the beginning, very swept off my feet kind of thing. And I just didn't understand how the person that supposedly loved me the most in this world was telling me like this is wrong, you're wrong here and there and there. And then I'd be like, okay, let me fix it because that's what I was taught.
Yes.
And that's also a little bit of society, we got to fix it. We've been taught like not to give up on our marriages and all that, but that I probably stayed longer than I should have. But then I don't beat myself up too much about that, and I don't want anybody else to do that either. You stay as long as you need to because you're in survival mode, and some people get out right away. Other people, stay 33 years like I do. And I've met people who have stayed longer. When I went, I took myself to Europe, and when I did, I met people on the tour I was on, and one lady was married 38 years and left her husband. The other one was like 46 years and left her. Both of them were in abusive marriages, and they were like, "No, it's never too late for your happily ever after." And I was like, "Oh, thank you."
And it's so incredible to talk to other people who have experienced something and you think, wait, maybe I'm not as crazy as I was told that I was. I was
Yes.
told I was crazy all the time. And
And that
so,
and you were made to feel that way,
yeah,
probably with gaslighting and everything else. It's all crazy making anyway. You're made to feel like you can't trust yourself in any way.
Yes.
And so I don't know how you are now. I mean, just from what I do know about you, like there's freedom, right? Because you're making these crazy decisions. I don't think there was a lot of play dancing stuff
No.
happening no, God, no. There was
Mm.
no play anything. No, you acting silly? My God, how embarrassing. You know, what I mean, I already know. I was married to the same person.
My ex-husband told me that he hated my laugh. I was not allowed to laugh around him because it wasn't feminine enough. And so I was not allowed to laugh around him. I mean, how crazy is that?
And don't you just love it when you laugh really loud?
I laugh, I belly laugh, and I do it
Yeah.
intentionally just to piss him off now, even though I
Yes,
have no contact
yeah,
with
yeah,
him. But
exactly.
it's like this freedom. I can do whatever I want, and I can belly laugh, and I don't care if it's feminine or not.
I was always told I was too loud.
Mm,
And I was told that all my life, like by everybody in my life. And so I was so quiet. So now when I'm loud and obnoxious and I'm sitting at not even like this is such a trauma response right now, but I'm going to say it anyway. Look, sitting in a restaurant with my girlfriends, yes, we're going to laugh. We're not going to be so obnoxious that we're disrupting all the other patrons.
right.
But that I have freedom in that, I was never allowed to do that. My God, somebody said something funny. Well, oh, that was funny. Like that's all you could say, And now I just talk with freedom with my girlfriends about anything. We talk about sex and things that I never, well, I was brought up in shame. So, and then being told to be quiet and not talk about certain things. Um, Now to have freedom for things like that, which is, I want people to hear the reason behind that is that you have freedom now
Mhm.
to be, who are you? Who am I? I talk about politics, I talk about sex, stuff like that. I've never done that in my life because that was not something that was okay to do. And now it's like, well, what if I talk about something and then I don't really like talking about it? Guess what? I'm allowed to change my mind.
Yes,
Guess what?
I get to stop. And guess what? Maybe somebody doesn't like me, and I'm okay with that.
Yes, exactly. And let me tell you, when we tell our story, though, what I have found along the way is I'm finding other people who are like, oh, you want to talk about that too? I want to talk about that. I never would have known some of my friends without talking about politics and the state of the world. I never would, if I wouldn't have voiced my opinion, I never would have known that I have friends who feel similarly. I'm tripping over my words tonight, and that they feel the same, and that we can talk about these
Yes.
issues and have freedom in doing so and have a safe place because we all need that safe place to express ourselves.
100%. Oh my gosh, I could talk for hours about this, but I
Yeah.
want to ask you, as you were on your journey, when you first started and
Yeah.
you were feeling broken and lost and whatever other words that you
Yeah.
would use, because coming out of a relationship with a closeted narcissist, with a
Yeah.
blatant narcissist, with anybody who's toxic, and it doesn't just have to be a romantic partner, it's
Yeah.
anybody that destroys your sense of who you are, your sense of well-being. How did you find the courage or the hope to go on? Because you had already said you felt like you didn't want to
Yeah.
exist. What was it for you that helped you find the courage to
Yeah.
start to do that heavy work? Because it can be trauma healing can be really heavy and painful.
It can be, that's for sure. Well, I really, if I, okay, so I said if I'm going to get a divorce, I'm going to like, this is who I am. I ran after my healing. And what that looked like for me was a lot of journaling.
Hmm.
Um, at that time, a couple of years ago, I was a little more religious than I am now. And so I was seeking God a lot more, which I still do that, but it was different then. Because for me, it was important to be like, I just spent 33 years of somebody telling me how terrible I am. And I know God says certain things about me, and that was important to me. And so I kind of lived off of that. But therapy, journaling to me was instrumental because getting those thoughts out of my head
Hmm.
and doing things like going to the beach and exercising to get my good, chemicals back in my brain. And really just learning who I was again and being like, okay, I have all this freedom. I really thought I was walking out of my marriage and the problem was going to be gone. Like,
Yes.
yeah, that sure isn't what happened. And so I have a story, unfortunately, that I was re-victimized because I went about 3 months with, I told everyone I knew, every single person I knew, please, no one tell me anything. Because I knew he was going to end up with this woman that I was afraid he was going to end up with because I thought he was with her already before we even got divorced. And I was like, nobody tell me anything. I don't want to hear about my ex, nothing. I unfriended him, blocked him, unfriended all of his friends, things like that, just whatever I could. Well, by accident, somebody told me that he was dating her, this woman that I thought he might be dating. And the minute that happened, my brain understood narcissistic abuse. And I had been I just feel like, again, I was following those breadcrumbs of like, oh, I saw this video on TikTok or whatever, maybe because I said the word narcissist, who knows? I saw this video. And so then I started getting information about that. And I was like, oh my God, this explains my entire story. And that helped me with my healing because I had a name for it. And then I could understand because this was just even the basic level. He's with somebody else and he was with her immediately. Okay, that I'm not trash. It's
Mhm.
because that's what they do. Now that didn't happen overnight. That
Right,
did
right.
not. No, I didn't sleep. I didn't sleep for 3 days, literally, when I found out that he was with her, because it destroyed my entire self-worth and who I thought. I thought I had this marriage with this person. I was fully devoted
Mhm.
and faithful and gave him all my trust and adoration, all that. And then when I heard the words that he was with her, and then I found out they were together immediately, I was so sick. And so I got way dysregulated. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like terrible text messages were sent and things like that. But okay. And I can understand this is very serious. I can understand how women snap. I never would have gone through with it. But let me tell you, I thought to myself, I could kill them right now. I really could. I really could. And I could understand it because you're so dysregulated
Mhm.
that I've never felt that kind of anger, never in my life, because it was a re-victimization. Not to mention, I don't know if this happened to you, when you start remembering
Mhm.
everything, like the puzzle pieces start coming together because your brain starts getting that clarity. I was like, my God, this was a lie and this was a lie. That happened to me even as I was writing my book, and my publisher, who's in the same spaces, said to me, "You're going to remember things as you're writing, and just take your time and like, give yourself grace for that." And so I had to run after my healing, but me running after my healing looked like learning about narcissistic abuse because I'm a learner. I'm a lifelong learner. I will learn forever. I love to learn about new things. And there were people saying like, this means this. And I was like, yay, that means I'm not a piece of trash because he just replaced me. You know what I mean? Like, it's not easy and it doesn't happen overnight, but there was a lot of sleeping because I was really dysregulated. So my brain was like, hey, you want to take a nap? I'm like, I love it. Yes, let's sleep for 14 hours a day. And then of course there's the no sleeping.
Yeah.
But I had to really run after my healing, and it was girlfriends and coffee time, and at first some wine, and then after that my therapist told me that. She goes, there's plenty of time for wine and Netflix, but that's not going to get you where you want to be. And so you have to decide. You can do that, but you have to decide if that's going to help you. And what I found was I was too anxious all the time. So wine was my escape with him, and I didn't need that anymore. So I mean, that's a personal choice, but I don't drink it anymore because my anxiety was too high, and I don't ever want to feel like that anymore. And I felt like I wasn't, yeah, I couldn't sleep. I had nightmares about him, stuff like that. So that to me was like, I have to listen to my body and do what's best for me. So that's my long answer on that because it's so layered, isn't it? Right?
It is. And I was going to say, you brought up some really amazing points. Journaling, getting out of your head,
Yeah.
getting those thoughts out is so powerful. By the way, some of us, myself included, might struggle with getting our thoughts out. I know journaling is so important and I go through periods where I can do it. And there are other times where I'm like, I don't even want to do it because that's going to make it real. So
Oh
just
no, I'm
know.
telling you, I'm the same way. Look, and I even have an Amazon shop full of journals that I created. And I have to say, I have my journal sitting right on my nightstand, and I journaled this morning, but there are days where I'm like, I don't want to talk about it.
I,
I don't feel like talking about it. And so today I'm not talking about it. And maybe I'll just cry about it, but I didn't feel like some days I don't feel like it, but it was really, really helpful for me to not only that, because there were days, okay, so when I wrote my book, it's actually my journal entries, and then I talk about my story because I told her I want people to know the reality of healing. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. And then you could go 5 steps forward and then you go 2 steps back. And I said, you know what? And that's okay. It's a cha-cha, and we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. But there were days where I was like, today's a great day and I'm healing and this is what it looks like. And then the next day I'd be like, fuck him, fuck that. And
Fuck
that
the
was my journal.
world.
And fuck the, yeah. And that was my journal entry. And so I put that in my book because I wanted people to see, like, yesterday was a good day. Today is not a good day. And that's normal because it's just a big scribble line. That's how healing looks. You're still moving forward, but imagine a big scribble. You're still moving forward, but it's a scribble. Like, so you go a little bit back and forth and it's messy and it doesn't have to be perfect and there's no real stages. But yeah, you're gonna grieve. I didn't even know that. I had people say, "Hey, just know you're gonna be grieving." I'm like, "I'm gonna be grieving? Why?
Like,
What
I
am
got
I
rid of that
grieving?"
dead weight. I'm
I
good.
know. Oh, I was so ignorant. Like I just didn't know. What was I thinking? Well, you know what I was thinking? I needed to survive and I was getting a divorce. So now it was going to be, but so much good, but then the unraveling of it all. And that's okay. I'm about 2.5 years out and so good. Like so good. I am not the same person. Not the same person because I ran after my healing as hard as I could. And not only that, I had to go back and during my healing, doing hypnosis and meditation, things like that, talking to little Laura,
Mhm.
talking to teenage Laura, healing those girls that needed their love from their mom and dad who didn't know how to love her, and so many things, family systems. I'm the firstborn and we have trauma in our family and stuff like that. And it's like, I needed to heal them. I still have my pictures up in my medicine cabinet, and whenever I open it, I see those pictures and just look at them, go, "You're okay now. Like we're okay now. We're safe. We're good." So I highly recommend healing your inner child because
I
it,
love, and
man,
by the way, for those of you that are not watching the video, Laura has a drink cup that is Hello Kitty, and I, I love it. And that just is such a perfect, and she's got a pink drink
yes,
in it. So
yeah,
Hello Kitty with a pink drink. Um,
it makes me so happy. That's the thing is doing those kinds of things for your inner child, right?
yes.
There's somebody I follow on Instagram. She's a psychologist and she took a solo trip to like Super Mario World, whatever, and to go because that helped her when she was like 13 or something, all the Mario games and everything. And she's like, there's an entire world. And I just commented, I go, your 13-year-old self was just loving it. She's, oh, so loving it. Like to give yourself permission, somewhere along the way we've been told to that's too immature and don't do that kind of stuff. And it's
Grow
like we
up.
know. Grow up, yeah. But my God, that's why I love Disneyland, stuff
Mhm.
like that. Like I'm a different person at Disneyland. Like I'm, skipping down Main Street. My kids don't even know what to do with me because I'm skipping down Main Street with my Starbucks and my churro and I'm having the time of my life because that little girl in me is healing. Yeah. It's
I,
amazing.
you bring up a really interesting point that I don't think is talked about enough to actually physically do those things that your inner child would want to do.
Yes.
We hear
But
about inner child healing and
yeah.
there's tons of great work that you can do it. And to do those things that your little child wants to do. For me, one of the things my inner child loves to color. And so I
Mm,
had coloring stuff and when I felt like I needed to let my little inner child heal, I would color and I would
yeah.
physically make that movement to do that because that the movement, the dancing, the jumping, the drinking out of a Hello Kitty, the going to Mario,
Right.
like
Yes.
it's a total systemic brain, body, mind, emotional, spiritual, and that sounds silly to say in terms of like going to Mario World or drinking from a Hello Kitty cup, but it's
Yeah.
not. It gives you that permission to connect to something greater than yourself, to allow yourself to be that child again and have that childlike wonder.
Hmm.
So I love that.
And the act of saying yes to
Yes.
whatever you're having, whatever your inner child is feeling, why not? I mean, I've loved Hello Kitty like forever. I remember being in junior high and it was like such a big deal. And so then to meet a friend who's also into Hello Kitty. And so for my birthday, got me two Hello Kitty cups. And I'm just like, oh my God. I said, and I got her Hello Kitty pajamas. I have to tell you, she's wearing them every day. She's texting me, look at my pajama. I'm like, this kind of stuff, because not only that it's so exciting that we're saying yes to that, it's
Yes.
that you find other people who are also saying yes to their inner child, and you heal off that energy together,
Yes.
to sit there and go, look at my sparkly earrings, or look at my Hello Kitty cup, and people get permission to be like, oh, I want to do something like that. I want to whatever, a pink sparkly whatever. It's so good. That's why we need to talk about these things, so that we know that there's other crazy people out there like us.
I love it. And
I
explore.
know.
Maybe you don't know what it is that you like as a
Yes.
child.
Yeah.
I had no memories of my childhood, so I didn't know what it was that I liked. And
Yeah.
so I did all sorts of things to learn, to figure out what little wounded Angie needed and wanted and
Love that.
loved to do because I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't my child abuse was unique, but I had no memory of it. And so like I had this whole other
Yeah.
world, and so I was just in survival mode my whole life. I had no idea, even though I played as a kid, but I never was able to feel
Yeah.
connected to it. So if you don't know
Yeah,
what you
that's
like,
interesting. Yeah.
go explore,
I love
because
that. Yeah.
even if you do know what you like, maybe your little child wants something different that you
Something
didn't know
different.
that you didn't have
Hmm.
exposure to when you were that age, and so you
Yeah.
get to now go do it.
I mean, like when back to school comes and you see that
Mhm.
shiny box of crayons, go get a
Oh,
box.
love that shiny box of crayons. Mine were colored
Oh, the
pencils,
little
but yep.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like you go through the store and you're like, oh my God, crayons and maybe a new notebook. Yes. Like it's, sometimes people, I think, like if I was at a nice, like a professional meeting or something, it doesn't matter to me. I'll still have my Hello Kitty notebook. It doesn't matter to me.
Same.
But, if somebody says something, saying like, yes, like this is my inner child needing love, that just is going to give them permission to heal. And that's all it is. That's all I wanted to when I started healing. Was I didn't understand when people weren't talking about this, and I was like, where do I find people to talk about, why aren't we talking about it? Because I had plenty of people telling me don't talk about it, and I was like, wait, why not? Why aren't we
But
talking about
but I want
this?
to. Yeah, yes. So I'm gonna say for
Yeah.
all the listeners out there, yes, say yes to yourself. Go.
Yes.
If you're unsure, if you're coming out of marriage, if you're unsure, if you're in a narcissistic marriage, doesn't maybe you don't need the definition. I didn't have that definition. I
Yeah.
just knew my marriage was toxic. Wasn't good for me.
Exactly. And
I needed out.
exactly. Me too. I didn't know either. So you don't need the definition. You just need to know, are you going to do this any longer? Are you good? Because the love of your life shouldn't be ruining your mental health.
Absolutely. You're worth so much more than that.
Yeah, for sure.
Laura, oh my gosh, I could talk to you for hours.
I know.
So I'm going to ask you the two questions I ask everybody. And
Okay.
then you have a gift for everybody.
I
So,
do.
yes, I'd love to have you share that. But so, first question is, if you could wave a magic wand and change anything about your healing journey, what would you change, if anything?
Um, yeah, no, you know what? Things happen the way they were supposed to happen. And so I don't know that I would change anything, because I did chase after it, and I chased after those breadcrumbs. If I figured something out, I moved past, I went after it and was like, what does that mean? And it's made me who I am. So I don't, yeah, yeah, I think I'm good.
Okay, I love it. Totally great. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Um,
tough, but that's okay.
yep. So then the next question would be kind of the opposite. If we could sit down and talk in 12 months, where would you want your healing journey to be that it's not now?
Yeah. I would like to have a lot more confidence in myself than I have. I
Mm.
don't know why I still feel a little stuck with that. And a lot of people tell me it's because I was in narcissistic abuse for 33 years.
Takes a
So
little while to rewire
it
that brain.
does. And so there's a lot of stuff that I feel like I'm doing really well on, and then there's stuff that I go to do and I really question myself. So it's such a bizarre, I'm still kind of having that cognitive dissonance where I'm holding two opposing thoughts at the same time. I know I'm a badass and I do so well in so many things. And then other times I'm like, I'm just gonna throw in the towel and I don't know what I'm doing and bye. So I mean not physically, but like
Yeah.
my business.
Yeah.
So it's I in the next year I want to have a lot more confidence that I do now, which is so bizarre to say, but I know there's more to do. I know there's more to unravel and more to heal. So,
Super, super powerful. That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Now, you do have a gift for the listeners. What do you
I
have for everybody?
do.
Tell us about it.
I do. On my website, I have a strategy call. It's a free 30-minute call with me to, if you've been in abuse, if you are in abuse, or if you're just in a toxic situation, you want to talk about it and see how I can help you because I have a few ways that I can work with you. And so a free strategy call to see if we should work together or how I can help you and give you resources.
Awesome. We'll also drop that link down in the show
Yeah.
notes. So go grab that. And then if people do want to reach out, follow you,
Yeah.
what's the best way for people to contact you?
My podcast is called That's Where I'm At, and my website is that's where I'm at podcast.com. And literally everything you wanted to know about me is on that website. And I'm all over all the socials. Come find me. I make funny videos to help you heal because I use humor for healing. I do a lot of serious videos, but mostly I use humor. We need those good endorphins. So that's always been my thing. And I felt bad about it at first. And then I had a friend go, "Hey, what's happening here? Why aren't you being funny?" And I was like, should I? And she's like, well, that's who you are. What's your problem? And so again, giving me permission to be myself. And so that's where I'm at podcast.com. You can see all the funny stuff I do.
She does do a lot of funny stuff, by the
I
way.
do.
So we'll drop the links in the show notes as well.
Great.
So definitely go grab that and go check her out. And if you have any questions about are you even in a relationship like that, reach
Yeah.
out,
Yeah.
follow her because she has a lot of really great informational resources out there
Yeah.
about to help you start to unravel and find those breadcrumbs.
I do.
Also in the show notes, I'm including and I'm dropping my free short, less than 5 minute movement sequence for when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you're feeling like you just need to peel your skin off or crawl out of your skin. It'll change your mood instantly. So also go grab that. The more tools, the more resources you can have. Let your inner child play. The more you'll notice your healing become lighter and lighter,
Yeah.
especially in those challenging times.
Yes.
So, thank you, Laura, for coming on. This has been delightful. You are amazing. And everybody, go check her out. And until next time, I'm wishing you tons of light and laughter and humor and inner child playing and healing.
Yes. Thanks,
So,
Angie.
thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.